Alright, what's up everyone, I'm Faluki, and today we're going to be taking a look at Day 3 of the 2020 NFL Draft for the Seattle Seahawks and what they ended up doing. So to start off, in the 4th round, Colby Parkinson got taken at pick 133. He's a tight end out of Stanford. He's 6'7", and although we have a ton of tight end depth, if he ends up getting playtime, he'll be a pretty good red zone target for Russell Wilson, so that's not a bad pickup. And if we go and look at the stats, in 2019, he had 48 receptions for 589 yards and a touchdown. He looks like he could potentially be a pretty good backup tight end throughout his career, or even become a starter at some point, but on day one, I think he'd probably be more of a red zone threat than anything else. And also in the 4th round, with pick 144, the Seahawks ended up taking Deejay Dallas, a running back from Miami, and with the big injuries to Chris Carson and Rashad Penny last season, we definitely need to add more running back depth because injuries can happen at any time, so it is good to be prepared and have good depth at that position. So, like the Seahawks, like in running backs, they took a very physical power back, and Deejay Dallas, he did pretty good at Miami. 115 carries with almost 700 yards and 8 touchdowns. In the receiving game, he also had 14 receptions for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, so overall a pretty good running back to add to the depth chart. He averaged 6 yards per carry, so honestly, pretty good stats to see for a running back. And with the selection in the 5th round, the Seahawks ended up taking Alton Robinson, a defensive end out of Syracuse. Obviously, the Seahawks really needed to beef up the defensive end depth of their team because that was a big struggle. The pass rush was a big struggle last season, and a good player to add in when it comes to pass rushing. He has had a lot of praise when it comes to his pass rushing abilities. And if we go and look at the stats, as you can see, 2019 was a bit of a down year with only 9 tackles for loss and 4 sacks with 46 total tackles, but 2018, his junior season, he ended up having 17 tackles for loss and 10 sacks, along with 3 fumbles. So honestly, he definitely has some potential to be a good pass rusher or even just a run stopper, someone to get into the backfield. And in the 6th round, the Seahawks ended up taking Freddie Swain, a wide receiver out of Florida. He's 6 foot tall. He ran a 4.46 40-yard dash, so honestly a pretty good speedy receiver. He'll most likely be a part of the return game when it comes to actually playing in games. But if we go and look at the stats, as you can see, he had 517 yards and 7 touchdowns on 38 receptions. Honestly, not bad receiving stats for a 6th rounder. And with the speed that he has, he'll probably be a very good asset when it comes to the return game. And with the final selection that the Seahawks made in the 2020 NFL Draft, in the 7th round, they ended up taking Stefan Sullivan, a tight end out of LSU. There was a bit of confusion when it came to what he would actually play in the NFL, wide receiver or tight end, but the Seahawks have said that they'd like to play him more as a tight end, and as a 6'5", 248-pounder, he could be a pretty big target for Russell Wilson, and with an unofficial time of 4.66 on the 40-yard dash, honestly, that's some pretty decent speed for a tight end. However, if we look at his stats, he only had 12 receptions for 130 yards. Then again, he only played 6 games, so not much to go off from stats, but honestly, receiving threats are not a bad pickup whatsoever. And that's actually going to do it for what the Seahawks did in the draft. Only 5 picks in day 3, so honestly not horrible picks whatsoever. They actually made some pretty decent pickups when it comes down to it. But now to give a grade for every one of those picks in day 3, I'm going to give the Colby Parkinson pick, I'm going to give it a B because honestly, although we don't really need depth at tight end, obviously depth is good, but we have 2 very good tight ends. They are getting old though. He will be a very good red zone target at 6'7", and he didn't drop a single pass in 2019 apparently, so honestly that could be a very good pickup when it comes to Russell Wilson having someone in the red zone. And when it comes to the Deejay Dallas selection, I'm going to give that a B as well because it does fill a depth need. Honestly, he's not going to be a big impact player because we will have Chris Carson and Rashad Penny back next season most likely. If one of those players ends up getting injured next season, he will probably be able to come in and make at least some impact when it comes to the running game to make up for any of the players that get injured because he will be a pretty good running back looking at the stats that he had last season in college. And with the 5th round selection, Alton Robinson, the defensive end from Syracuse, I'm going to end up giving that a B+ because it really fills a position of need, and a lot of people had said that he is a very good pass rusher, and that is one of the biggest things that we needed to focus on in this draft. And to get him in the 5th round with people talking so highly of him, it seems like it's a really good pick. I didn't watch too much college football last season, but I did watch his highlights, and he looks pretty decent, so honestly, 5th round selection taking a position of need, I'll give it a B+ because he doesn't need to contribute day 1 as a 5th round selection, but he will definitely fill some needs for us. And looking at the 6th round selection for the Seahawks, Freddie Swain, wide receiver, He's fast, and he had good stats last season in college, so honestly, he'll probably bring some impact when it comes to the return game, so I'm going to give that pick a B as well. Everyone's basically getting a B, because really, they're good pickups to fill positions of relative need, and especially Freddie Swain, he'll probably just be on the return game mainly, so with the speed that he has, he could make a big impact in that aspect of the game. And looking at the final pick of the draft, Stefan Sullivan for the Seahawks, I'm going to give that pick a B as well. A lot of people really like Stefan Sullivan, and with a 4.66 40-yard dash as a tight end, what Pete Carroll wants to use him for, he'll probably be a pretty decent option, especially when Greg Olsen ends up leaving the Seahawks, because he's pretty old. I think he's only on a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year, but he's getting pretty old, so we'll just have to see what happens after he leaves. Although we still do have Will Dissly, and we did pick up Colby Parkinson earlier in the draft, honestly, a 4.66 40-yard dash for a tight end that's 6'5", 250 pounds is not bad whatsoever, so it'll be fun to see if he can progress. And with all of that about the draft out of the way, I'm going to go over the undrafted free agent pickups that the Seahawks have made so far after the draft. They have made 13 pickups, and I'm just going to read them out, list them off to you. I'm not going to give much of an overview. I'm just going to list them. If you want to look them up, you can. Alright, so the list goes: linebacker Eli Menser, quarterback Anthony Gordon, safety Chris Miller, cornerback Gavin Heslop, defensive tackle Marcus Webb, running back Anthony Jones, cornerback Kemah Siverand, wide receiver Seth Dawkins, cornerback DeBoyne Renfro, tight end Tyler Mabry, defensive tackle Josh Avery, wide receiver Aaron Fuller, and offensive tackle Tommy Champion. So honestly, some good defensive pickups, especially safety, cornerback, and defensive line. We got an offensive lineman in there as well, and more wide receiver, running back, and quarterback depth. So honestly, most of these players will end up being practice squad players, or players that may even end up getting cut before the season starts. But just thought it'd be interesting to mention all of their names if you want to look them up, and maybe follow them when it comes to the preseason. I'm going to be looking out for them and seeing how they end up doing. So that's going to do it for this video. Basically just a quick overview of everything that happened in day 3 of the NFL draft and what happened after when it comes to undrafted free agents. I'd like to thank you for watching. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to keep up with my channel, and yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great day.